number one predictor for who's going to be in prison is based on the fact that the children who drop out of high school, the students who drop out of high school, overwhelmingly go to jail. And so 60% of the African-American males in this country who dropped out of high school, who are in their 30s, are in jail today.
That's too amazing to believe. That's literally unbelievable.
Yeah, the total number of African-American males in jail today in this country exceeds the number of African-American males who were enslaved at the beginning of the Civil War.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
you go back, I mean, it's a number issue, but you go back and look at the number of people in jail. But it's 60% who drop out of school. It's 10% of the ones who didn't drop out of school. But you can predict with 80% accuracy by age 3 whether or not the kids are going to drop out of school. And that's because all the brain development happens in the first 3 years of life. The neurons connect in the first 3 years of life. That's when the brain gets strong. And the kids who have someone talking to them, playing with them, reading to them, interacting with them, in the first 3 years build billions and billions of neuron connections. And they last for life. So that all the kids who have that exposure, get their brain exercise in those years, do well. And the kids who don't have that happen, the kids who are isolated, ignored, don't have anyone talking to them, by the time they get to 4, can't catch up because the brain chemistry changes at 4 and the brain prunes itself. It actually prunes out unused connections and cells. And so what happens is kindergarten, pre-kindergarten is too late. At age 4, the kids, so you can do all kinds of things to help the kids be happier. You can do things to help them be wiser, but you can't make them significantly smarter after 3.
Okay, hold, because you've now put me in a panic, because my kids are 6 and 4. Okay, so, it's too late. I should have read your book earlier.
But right, but you have read and talked to your kids. Number one, you have.
So let's talk about what you need to do in those first 3 years for optimal return, if you will.
Let's go down. Yeah, let's go down a couple paths, because one is what you do for kids in that time frame, and then what do you do if you've missed that opportunity, and what do you need to do later? But what you need to do in the first years is you need to talk to the child, you need to read to the child, interact with the child, play with the child, and you need to, Harvard Center for the Developing Child has done some magnificent work on what they call volley and return, where the child says something and you react to it and you have a volley and return with the child. That actually builds brain cells by the billions. It's incredible. The little brains light up, the kids they beam, they're happy, the brain just explodes when, literally, you get explosions of connectivity in the brain of the children who are getting happy connections with their mother, their father, their grandmother, whatever, in the family. So you get that explosion happening. And the kids who are isolated, the brain doesn't connect, that part of the brain doesn't link up. Those billions of connections do not happen. And you get to age 4, and it's too late. Those kids have tiny vocabularies, they cannot do well in school, they never learn to read, and they drop out of school.
So there's a couple of different elements here. One is the vocabulary then allows them to do better in school and et cetera. But is there also a social element to this, that if you don't build those neurons that connect you to other human beings, that you lack empathy and become a Republican?
Well, let me actually let me go back and add one other thing, because that's first 3 years, but there's also the first 3 months. And there's epigenetic science now that shows us that the brain actually structures itself differently. So in the first 3 months, when the brain epigenetic factors are at play, if a child is hungry and is fed, and if a child is stressed and is comforted, the brain wires itself in one direction. But if the child is hungry and not fed, stressed and not comforted, the brain literally wires itself differently. And you have a different brain at 100 days. And the children who end up with the negative wiring end up with presumptive negativity as a syndrome, so they assume the world is negative. Any interaction comes to them, they respond to it as though it's a negative interaction. And the kids who get the other response think the world is positive, and so they're looking forward to new experiences and they're welcoming the world. And so you get 2 very different sets of behaviors And Dr. Beatrice Beebe at Columbia did some magnificent work, and she can videotape a mother-child interaction at 100 days and predict with 90% accuracy which kids are going to be in trouble at 1 year, 3 year, and 5 years.
Wow.
At 100 days.
So
back to your point earlier, though, so what she says is don't give up on the kid at that point, intervene. So she's all about, let's assess every kid at 100 days, identify the ones that are in problematic status, and then provide some kind of adult intervention, either help with the parent or get another parent or get a grandparent or get an outside. But she believes in interventions because you can still save the kids at 100 days. 100 days isn't hopeless, but 100 days is inevitable if you don't intervene.
So, quick side question: Ferber method, where you make have the kid cry themselves to sleep, is that deeply problematic given what you're saying?
That's not optimal. No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. When the kid, it depends how old the kid is. If the kid is 4, you're fine.
Yeah.
But no, at the beginning of the process, you want the kid. The kid who is stressed needs to be comforted at that point to get the brain wiring going in the right direction. So you need to comfort the child, you need to feed the child, you need to interact with the child. And the children can tell differences in languages at like 6 hours old. I mean, the research is stunning. Yes, they can tell, when they're just hours old, the brain actually reacts differently if they hear a language that wasn't the one they heard in utero.
So in the first 6 months to a normal parent, the kid appears to be a blob. Okay, but what you're saying is the exact opposite.
Exact opposite. The kid is exploding. The neurons are connecting like crazy. They're connected by the billions.
So you should read to your kids in the first 100 days, even way more so than when you read to them when they could actually understand it.
Yes, you should be interacting with the children in loving, supportive ways immediately, and books is part of that. But talking is huge. Just simply talking to the child. Interacting.
Boy, do I talk.
Yeah, no, well, talking.
Thank God for that.
The kids with talking parents end up much smarter. The kids whose parents talk to them, yes. And I assume you got smart kids, but if you talk to
we don't know yet. Jury's out.
Yeah,
but the only person I know who talks more than me is my wife. So we got that covered.
You got it covered. But that's what you need. And what's going on now is that we don't tell that to mothers. So mothers have a child take it home and do not know that they're supposed to talk to the child and don't know that talking is magical and creates all kinds of connections. The mothers who learn that immediately change behavior and they love it because all mothers love their children. They really want their children to do well. And so you really want the children to do well. So the mothers basically change behavior when they get the coaching, but if they don't get the coaching, they can't change behavior because they don't have the knowledge.